Are you able to pull it up?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay. Are you ready to start?
Yeah, I'm ready to start. Let's go.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us this morning. This is the final Cultural District webinar of the year, and I'm excited to invite Kevin King to be our speaker today. As you know, I'm Francesca Vega. I'm the director of the Louisiana Cultural Districts program. And as you are coming in, you'll notice that your camera and your microphone are off. Feel free to put questions in the chat, and then we'll also be able to turn everyone's mics and cameras on at the end of Kevin's presentation if y'all wanted to have more of a dialogue with him. So with that, I will hand it off to Kevin to introduce himself and also start his presentation.
Hey, good morning. Good morning. All right, there we go.
There you go.
All right. All right. So I'm Kevin King with the King's Canvas. I want to first of all say thank you to Francesca and the Louisiana Cultural Districts for allowing me to be a part of this webinar series. This is reviving culture in disenfranchised communities, and we're going to go ahead and jump into it. So just a little bit of background about me quickly. I'm from Mobile, Alabama. And that's significant because I grew up doing art, but around high school, I stopped because well-meaning adults basically told me to pick a real major, get a real job. And they said I couldn't make any money doing art. So I went to Tuskegee University and majored in mechanical engineering. I did that for some years and ended up getting out, allowing life to happen. And I worked in the engineering field for probably about 7 years, and then I started a community-based organization in town called Common Ground Montgomery, and I did that from around 2006 to 2019, but it was around 2013 I started back doing art. And at that moment, I became I've always been a visual artist, but I started painting for the first time. And as I began to paint, and get involved in things that were going on in the city with the advocacy work I was already doing with children and families in the West Montgomery community, Washington Park. I noticed that we didn't have too many opportunities for anybody, any Black artist or anyone else who would be considered marginalized in our city. And being a person that I am, I decided to start an organization to kind of cater to those needs, those unique needs that we needed as artists to kind of be integrated into this arts and culture, ecosystem that did not exist at that time, but it does now. We're going to talk more about that later. But at the same time, I got introduced to this term called creative placemaking by a guy by the name of Jamie Bennett, who was at that time the executive director of Art Place America. And that was around 2015, 2 years after I started painting. And I'm gonna just tell y'all right now, I hate reading from slides. This is way too much information for me. I'm overwhelmed right now just reading this, but I don't want to assume that everyone knows what creative placemaking is. Creative placemaking was the initial term, but since then there have been other terminology that people have kind of used instead of creative placemaking. We've heard placekeeping, we've heard place honoring, we've heard place-based community development, we've heard creative practices. Whatever you call it, we're going to talk about what it means to infuse art into our communities and what it does. And just for the sake of the slides, I'm going to go ahead and read it. It says the term creative placemaking was coined in 2010 by Ann Markinson and Ann Godwin Nicodemus. Ann Godwin Nicodemus is a good friend of mine these days. They wrote some white papers for the National Endowment of the Arts. Creative placemaking is a process that uses arts and culture to shape the physical and social character of a community. It's a collaborative approach that involves a variety of partners, including artists, designers, community members, and community developers. The goal is to improve the community in a number of ways, including economic development, social change, environmental sustainability, sense of place, community ownership, and aesthetic appeal. And we're going to talk about all of these, probably not in this order, but we're about to get into this right now. So 2017, like I said, the King's Canvas was founded as a way to provide opportunity and access for underdeveloped and underexposed artists at the time. We're all about creative placemaking and community transformation. So we're about people in the sense that we decided to create an ecosystem that was equitable for everyone. At the same time, we wanted to focus on a specific location. And so we decided to pick a place and see if we can transform the community. And this community that I'm in is the Washington Park community. It just so happened to be the neighborhood that the former nonprofit that I run was same neighborhood in Washington Park. So a little bit of history about Washington Park. I don't know if you all are familiar with Bloody Sunday. I don't know if you're familiar with the 7th of Montgomery March, John Lewis, the Edmund Pettus Bridge. A lot of times when I travel out of Montgomery, people have never heard of it. But when it comes to the Voters' Rights Act, it happened here. The march started about 45 minutes from us in Selma, Alabama, and it ended at the Capitol of Montgomery, where Dr. King gave us an address on voters' rights. And cool thing about it is it passed right past the building that we're in. We're on a street called Oak Street. They camped out at St. Jude's. You see Nina Simone, Harry Belafonte, Dr. King, Coretta Scott King. This is St. Jude. Right here in this area. This is literally 2 blocks from where we are. You see Dr. King at the Capitol giving this address. And that's the significance of our community. But sadly, over the years, our community has been kind of decimated due to what happened all across the nation. The interstate basically chopped our community up, displaced about 1,400 families. At that time, the Housing Authority built a housing complex called Gill's Village. And part of the reason it was built was to catch the fallout of the people who were displaced, who lost their homes. At that time, people got an average of $3,000 for their home. And if you didn't own your home, you had to go somewhere. And a lot of those moved in public housing in our community. And this is a guy, he's a friend of mine, Skip Jackson. This was a story that was written by Christopher Johnson called Cleave by Concrete. And Skip says, I can remember the day they brought the big earth movers out there, Jackson said. We knew it was coming. We knew the people who owned their homes started to move. When the people who owned their homes started to move, we knew that was coming. Just like in a neighborhood that's poor, you don't argue. All it did for us was kill our neighborhood. So our community was a thriving community. It was a unified community. And when the interstate system came in at the direction of a guy by the name of Sam Engelhardt, our city tells a story of Sam Engelhardt saying that he wanted to run the interstate directly through Ralph Abernathy's church. And if you know anything about Dr. Martin Luther King, we all know that Ralph Abernathy was one of his close friends during that time. So this is our neighborhood. So when this happens, economically, our community died. It shut off access for commerce for our community. At that time, there were no off-ramps in our community. There is now, but back then, everyone bypassed our community to get to where they were going out to reach a growing East Montgomery at the time. And our community economically died. And so that's where we are. Probably around 2007, my family and I bought a home there. We renovated it and we moved in the community to be a part of the fabric of the community for the purpose of neighborhood transformation. So that's our neighborhood. And so as I began to engage with this idea of creative placemaking while we're trying to provide opportunities for artists, we knew that we had to consider some strategies prior to us purchasing land or moving into a space and activating a space. So we needed to think strategically because we all know what happens when the negative aspects of gentrification comes in. So we knew that we needed to strategically select a location, and our strategy in our community was picking a space that was along the historic Civil Rights Trail, the 7th of Montgomery March Trail. We knew we had to be selective of business collaborations because the creative placemaking data says that once we implemented this strategy, we would possibly have other businesses who would want to move into the community. I'm gonna get into that a little later, but Starbucks tried to move right next door to us a couple of years ago. Well, they requested to move next door to us. But we had to have some conversations about that. Prioritize preserving culture, because we all know that our communities are very unique. They have a culture, but when those who aren't from the community move in, certain cultural practices that are not damaging, some are often are no longer acceptable because people don't want to be disturbed. So we wanted to be cognizant of that. Another thing we wanted to be cognizant of is potential displacement, because property values will go up and sometimes it's needed. Oftentimes it's needed for the development of our communities, but we don't want to see anyone displaced. And so prior to moving in, we said, how do we combat these elements and do justice to the land? And when I say the land, I mean the people, I mean the physical structure, the culture, and everything that involves a neighborhood in a community aspect. Okay, transition was kind of slow there. And so this is our building. I'm going to start off by saying I had a hard time with this building in the beginning because the King's Canvas does not own this building. The owner of this building is a good friend of mine. He's an older gentleman who runs a few businesses in the community that's been there for about 60 plus years, a restaurant. I mentored his grandchildren, really good friends with his daughter. They welcomed me into their family. But Mr. Bethune did not want to sell this building. So I said, okay, if you don't sell it, I'm gonna need a long-term lease. And so I basically had him to sign a 15-year lease to not only protect me and the money that we would eventually put in it, but those who would come behind me, because I won't be at the King's Canvas for 15 years. And it's been about 6 years, to date. And we renewed that lease about 2 years ago. So this is our building. When we first moved in, we had local artists who said that they need a conducive space to create. And so, right there on the right side, that's our little small, humble space. There are 3 units on the front. We wanted to give people studio access. People needed art supplies, and people needed also a sense of community. And I'm going to start by saying that there's an organization in town by the name of 21 Dreams that started probably a year prior to us, and they are doing awesome work. But they were dealing with artists like us who kind of found our creative voice in a sense already. And so I was dealing with the person who was told to pick a real major and get a real job. You can't make any money doing art at high school. I was also trying to reach that adult who allowed life to happen, as I did, who needed to get back to creating. And the third person that I had a goal to reach was that person who did not know that they were creative. That was also me, because I grew up as a sketch artist, but I started painting for the first time at 34. And so that was my goal. And the goal was to develop these people and pass them along to my friend Kalundri with 21 Dreams so they can do some great work. And it's happening right now. So this was our building. And I had a little vision. So, I just did a rough hand drawing and said, hey, I wonder if we could revitalize this building in a way that would activate these spaces. But I didn't want to do it apart from the community. So we brought a group of community members in from ages 14 all the way up to 80 years old. And I hosted a community charrette, and we had conversations. And I said, hey, what do we want this building to look like? What we want to see in our community? And so they came in. I had pizza, I had sodas, water, whatever. And we hosted a little charrette. And a friend of mine by the name of Winfrey Hawkins, who's a muralist, brought him in as well. And he came in with an initial design because we knew sort of what we wanted, but we wanted to have a community to kind of help us round it out a little bit and to tell a story that we didn't necessarily want to deem that the community, or dictate to the community what the story should be. So we basically came in and I passed out a bunch of surveys and we had conversations, and we're going to see in a second what the community came up with. But outside of that, we knew that being a nonprofit organization, especially in the South, sometimes we don't get funding like people. People struggle in nonprofits in general, but we knew eventually we would have to have a retail space so we can earn a little income to be able to roll back into our operational account. And we're on track to do that now. And that's one of the things that's coming, but that's one of the things back when we moved into this facility that we initially wanted to see. Gathering space. We knew that we wanted to have a space, a safe space for people to come to Washington Park and gather. Now, for those of you who on the call who understand what the West Side is and where Washington Park is, they would know about, 3 or 4 years ago, you would not want to come to our community to do anything at night, if at all. We're going to talk about that in a second too. We also knew that once the space became activated, that we would need a space for not only visual artists to come and create, but we would need a space for performing artists to come and create. So we ended up painting this mural. And the moment we painted this mural, I got a phone call from a friend of mine who works for a voters advocacy organization called Rolling to the Polls. And Kanisha's from the West Side. And Kanisha said, Kevin, we want to do an event at the King's Campus, at the vacant lot right next to the building. And we do own a lot. And I know what the creative placemaking data says. So now I needed to substantiate the data. So I'm asking Kanisha, well, why do you want to use this lot? And Kanisha said, well, Kevin, you just had a vacant lot right next to the building. I just think it's a good spot. I said, Kanisha, this vacant lot's all over the hood. Why this one? And Kanisha began to tell me how dope the mural was, and it'll look good in pictures. It's bringing the community together because it say, welcome to West Side Montgomery. And I said, okay, let's do it. And so we started doing community block parties. But before the block parties, once we created the mural, because it said West Side, and if you're from Montgomery, no matter how dilapidated some of the houses or the commercial structures are, people are proud to say that they're from the West Side. I've never seen this amount of pride in the community in general, but people are really proud to be from the West Side and they love it. And so the fact that we shouted the West Side out on the mural, it instilled a sense of community pride just in our neighborhood. We started having block parties there. Tourism increased because now people are taking pictures, people are posting it. And now when people come to Montgomery to see all the civil rights attractions, such as Dr. King's church, his house, Brian Stevenson's Equal Justice Initiative, legacy sites, they come into our space to take pictures in front of the mural just to say that they've been here, to say that they've been in Montgomery. And we didn't have a mural of this kind prior to this. We just needed something big and bold that shouted Montgomery. And I said, why not have it on the West Side to bring people back to our community? And if they come back to our community, maybe we can have an economic impact. Maybe those tourists are frequent some of the businesses, some of the existing businesses in our community, and maybe we can recruit other businesses to now move into the West Side because now they see that because the traffic is increased from not only the community, but from outsiders, maybe they can have a sustainable business. Then we did this. I was talking to a friend of mine who ran an organization in Chattanooga, Tennessee, who was a little bit further along in his creative placemaking journey to us. And she said, Kevin, I understand that you have a studio on the inside and you want to turn it into a gallery and you want to put a larger studio in the back and you want to bring these businesses in. But she said, you need to renovate the outside first. You need to make it seem, you need to show physical transformation is taking place. You need to make sure that you do that so you can get the funding you need to finish out the rest of it. Reluctantly, I did it. And once we renovated the outside, we got a couple of grants from our local Rotary Club. Hyundai gave us a grant to build a deck, brought in the artists to continue the colors on the front. It was just a community effort. The landlord, he laid the cement. He was putting the money in, that I was paying for rent every month. And, this is where we are right now. After this, it increased community engagement because now we have a stage for people to perform. Now we have a green space where vendors can set up. We have block parties. We have all sorts of crazy events happening in this neighborhood that didn't happen before. And the community took ownership of it. I saw a Facebook post one time. I don't even know who this young lady is, but she posted this image. Well, it wasn't this particular image, but she took a picture of the mural, and her caption read, "The West Side is coming back." And then she said, "Y'all better not mess it up." And so that was huge in our community because if you know this neighborhood, there was a lot of crazy stuff that happens. I used to live just one block over on Westcott Street. directly behind St. Jude, where the Stars for Freedom rally happened when Dr. King and Coretta Scott and all of those other stars I talked about came down. But the community have a sense of ownership because they're like, yo, this is different. We haven't seen, even though small, we haven't seen this level of development happening anywhere on Oak Street. Let's protect it. And so people have been protecting it since then. Also, a revived post. I was talking to one of my neighbors who purchased a property across the street from the King's Canvas, and he parks his big rig there. Now, he lives on that street behind, so he always just walks through the yard and cuts through our yard to get to his truck. And he was sitting in his truck one day, and he had this old man frown on his face. You know, when we kind of get up in age, we just naturally start frowning sometimes. And I walked up to him and I said, Mr. Julius, I just want to remind you of the event that we have coming up. He already knew about it, but I just wanted to make sure that he knew that following day that we had a huge event out there, and I wanted to make sure that we wasn't doing anything to disturb the community, just keeping them updated. Mr. Julius said, you know, Kevin, this neighborhood was dead, but now it's alive. He said this portion of the neighborhood had no posts, and he took his wrist, flipped it over, and put his 2 fingers on his wrist, and said this neighborhood now has a post again. Then he said, I never thought I'd live to see this. Because Mr. Julius, remember when the neighborhood was thriving, he saw the neighborhood decline once the interstate was constructed. And now he sees all of these people coming back to the community, having a good time and spending their money in the neighborhood. And to him, he was blown away. There's another young man, an older guy. I don't know his real name, but we just call him Popsicle. I don't know where the nickname derived from, but his nickname is Popsicle, okay? We were sitting out here one day and Popsicle said, man, I haven't seen anything like this over here in 50 years. And then he began to tell the stories about all of the movie stars and the actors and the entertainers that used to come to Montgomery. Obviously, Dr. King was a superstar. And so people used to come to Montgomery to perform all of the time. Back when this neighborhood was thriving, he remembered seeing that. But he also remembered during the civil rights movement, or really right after the civil rights movement, the construction of the interstate, and the interstate is dying. The interstate killing our community. So to them who witnessed all of this, it's a picture of progress. So some of the things that we do, and I'm gonna quickly go through this because I want to get to your questions. Once we built the stage, this stuff started happening. People would come out and set up blankets and chairs and they would perform, they would have a good time. You know, just daily activation, just activation during the daytime. One of our friends, Star Pieces, is sitting there painting. On the right side, you have the Corn Robinson with the chamber and some other friends of ours. They just sitting on the deck, just hanging out on a nice, beautiful day. I'm gonna get to this in a second, but across the street, there's a restaurant, really popular restaurant that's in town, and I'm gonna talk about that later. But you know, they already have their cups of Kool-Aid and they waiting on their food because the restaurant has loudspeakers outside, and you could order your food, come back and sit on the deck, you know, and then you can hear your food call. Now she'll get mad at me because I posted this, but the young lady in the back, I used to work with her at my previous organization, and you see she's about to dig in. So this is different angles. You know, we have full bands up there. We have people enjoying themselves during the day. Now, this is Washington Park. Now, imagine whatever community you have that would be considered economically distressed, historically disenfranchised, marginalized, or whatever terminology you use. Imagine doing this in that particular community. And now all of this is happening. Imagine being afraid to go to that particular neighborhood if you're not from that neighborhood and saying, man, I'll never go over there because there's no reason for me to ever set foot over there. This is how Washington Park is. This is what you're looking at right now. And this is just inside of the studio. You know, that's one of my paintings on the left. And you have other artists paintings on the right. And you just have people just enjoying themselves. Now, this space right here, we're in the process of renovating, into an art gallery. And there's another space in our facility. I'm not going to show you on this slide because it's really not too much to see right now, but it's being renovated to become our new studio. That's larger. Now, when this happened, This was huge. We have a local musician by the name of John Boy. He was the one who kicked it off. He said, man, I want to do an event over there at night. And I was like, wait a minute, bro. You mean at night? At nighttime on the west side of Washington Park? He said, yeah, bro, at night. And so the first time we did this, we had no police protection out there, no security. The only security we had was in a neighborhood OG who grew up in the neighborhood by the name of Go Lucky. That's all we had. And he just kind of hanging out. People are walking up. People from the community are coming out. People from the outside. As you can see, they came out to enjoy themselves on Oak Street in Washington Park at night. I can't to stress enough how unheard of this is to be in our community at night. This would not have happened 3 to 4 years ago. You constantly see bands just as during the daytime. You see bands performing. They have the lights out there. On the right side, that was a birthday party. A lot of these people were friends of mine that's from the community that decided to do a birthday party on our front deck. And that's that community gathering space element, right? Just having additional community space. If we aren't doing anything or having any activities on our vacant lot or performers on the stage, people just kind of hang out on the deck because, the lights are out there, the speakers are out there, the music is going, and they just enjoying ourselves. It's a whole vibe. And, on the left side, I mentioned a gentleman by the name of Kalonji who runs an organization, 201 Dreams. He decided to come over there at night when that wasn't even an event. He just has his laptop out, just tapping into our internet system, just on a cool night enjoying himself. And I say cool night, Montgomery can get kind of humid. And so when the weather changes, this is the best time to be out there. So we don't do this by ourselves. I remember whenever we dedicated our front deck after the Rotary Club, had given us some funding to just kind of beautify our front area to create that additional community gathering space. I had a lot of our community partners, the nonprofits on our street and in our neighborhood, just to kind of, our businesses in our neighborhood, just to talk about who they are, what they did, because I don't believe it's just about the King's Canvas. I don't believe it started with the King's Canvas. A lot of these people were here before me. I think we're just trying to do something that further contributed to the development and the creative placemaking efforts that are happening in our communities. But the barbershop on the left, Cuts by the Pound, did not look like that. The owner, our CEO, owner Johnson, saw what we did with the mural, and he said, well, Kevin, when people are coming off of Fairview, they get to my building before they get to your building. And so I felt the need to kind of set the tone so that I see what's coming up down the road. So he took ownership of this. He hired his own artists, and he just put civil rights heroes. You can't necessarily see it. I don't think on your screen as well, but he has Booker T. Washington, George Washington Carver, Dr. Martin Luther King, John Lewis sitting in those chairs, and on the front of the building, he has our first Black mayor, Stephen Reed. Just a pretty dope depiction of just barbershop life and people, coming together to kind of fellowship in the barbershop, and that's what you see before getting to our building. On the right side, you have Barber Gale's Neighborhood Grill, who run by the son of the guy who owns the building that the King's Canvas is in. And I got a local tattoo artist by the name of J-Bo that I've been knowing for probably about 17 years. I got him to do that mural, representing not only food on the right side, but the 7th of Montgomery March that happened on the left side. And so this is significant because the guy who owns this place, he's a good friend of mine, and he's probably a couple of years older than me. But he walked across the street one day, and we always talking, and he said, Kevin, man, I didn't understand what you were doing with this art thing. He said, but because you lived in the neighborhood and we love you, man, we would have let you do anything. And so just kind of getting that community buy-in, I don't think I realized how much buy-in I had from the community, being that I had already been a resident and I know so many people in the neighborhood. But one of the things he said was, since we've been over there, his business has increased. I mean, it's increased so much, he don't even want any more business right now. He is at his capacity because so many people frequent his restaurant. More community partners. Now, you don't see any color on the left. I'm still working on my boy CJ about letting us throw in some paint on this building, and I think we just figured out a solution. But we partner with a housing development organization that owns about 35 to 40 houses in the community, and they provide affordable housing for a lot of the residents who want to stay in the community. Now, this organization was founded under the umbrella of the organization that I co-founded previously. So it's good to see that the work is still continuing there. One of the things that we said is that we will not sell to outside investors. So he's holding on to the property and he's working on moving people to home ownership, even though he's had a tax. So the organization is called House to House. On the right side, you see Nick Rankins and Ashley Monique Robinson in front of the camera. You don't see the full building right there because I just wanted to focus on the people who are actually running the facility. But these are some really great people. And they have a family resource center there called Change Alabama, and doing some great work in the community. This is 2 blocks from us, and some of our artists painted the front of that building. We have another partner, a guy by the name of Jamel Brown. That's his building. He does a lot of giveaways. He's been in the community for years. He's done some great work in the neighborhood. On the right, Richard Williams has another organization called the Beacon Center. And my office is actually operate outside of this building, but I also got an artist to paint the front of it. This is an old doctor's office, and so he does his food giveaways there. He has a counseling center there. People can go there for therapy. He has a health clinic there. So pretty cool stuff for the community. I think we do a great job on the west side as smaller organizations and businesses of working good together. We even on at least the people on Oak Street, we all on a group chat together. And so if one of us is doing an event, we'll constantly share flyers and information so we'll know what's going on before it hits the public. We have street art over there. This is at the corner. This is at the intersection. If you look back here, you can kind of see this blue cursor right here. This is our building. And we partner with a group called Map 360. And I think one of the people who work with Map 360 is on this call, Geneva Watford. But we partnered with Map 360 last year. We brought an artist in, or they brought an artist in from Paris by the name of John One, who did some cool artwork downtown, but he also spilled over into our community and worked with the community to do the street art at the intersection of Oak and Early, which was pretty cool. And so we just want to make our community colorful. Like anything that has a surface that we can put paint on, we do that in order to constantly make our community vibrant, and it brings more and more people to our community. Then bringing more people out to our community, we believe that we can have sustainable businesses. Before I move further, one of the things I did not mention is whenever before we built the stage, before we built the deck, there was another young man who runs a school in town who decided that since we now had so many people coming to our community, he wanted to be a part of the transformation because a lot of the scholars who are enrolled in the school, they're from their neighborhood. So they opened up a literacy center in the form of a bookstore right next door. And so that's happening. Now, this is a pretty cool project. A friend of mine by the name of Boyd Stevens was kind of the conduit through Intel and his organization, I-85 Cyber, which is all of us. He does our entrepreneur classes. We have an entrepreneur class, a small business startup class going on right now. He put this huge kiosk. So I had this huge kiosk placed in front of our building. And you see that's Popsicle over there to the right. Right. And that's my friend Jermaine to the left. He's looking at videos on the left, and Popsicle is looking at an area view of the city to the right. But we have a program embedded into the system that allows people to learn about local businesses and to find their ways, like wayfinding technology. But we also have one of the fastest internets in the city that we're rolling out as well. And so anything that we can do from an art side and a technological standpoint, we believe that our community deserves the best, just like any other community. We may not have brand new homes, we have renovated homes, but we want to fuse our community with art and technology and show the community that we value where we live. We value these spaces, and we want to be able to provide access to a lot of these technology and opportunities that a lot of other neighborhoods have. So we want to create the community We want to create the community that we want to be in, or that we want to see. So right now we've become a tourism destination because we have all kinds of people coming to our neighborhood. Now, obviously, I had to post this picture because we have Susie or Selma, who's the executive director of South Arts. You have Elliot Knight, who's the executive director of our local arts council. You have Ayana Hudson, who's the deputy director for the National Endowment of the Arts. And I think a lot of us know who Maria Rosario Jackson is, who's the chair of the National Endowment of the Arts. The Arts Council brought them by to see our space as a picture of placemaking, obviously because I learned about placemaking from the white papers that was written for the National Endowment of the Arts. So this is pretty cool. This happens all of the time. People come and they just take pictures in front of our mural. Which leads me to this. We need for you all to save the date because April 1st through the 3rd, 2025, we have the Power Community. It's our Southern Appalachian Creative Placemaking Conference that's happening here with creative placemaking communities. The King's Canvas is the official partner this year, or next year for this upcoming conference. A lot of people don't know this yet, so I'm kind of revealing it here. I don't know if anybody's ever seen this before, because I don't think it's out, but registration open September 30th. We're really excited about that. We're going to have a lot of people in the city, and thankfully, you know, Brian Stevenson with the Equal Justice Initiative. I got Brian Stevenson to open up our main plenary. And we're going to have a pretty dope time here. So I'm hoping that you all can come and join us and see some of the work that we're not only doing, but see what organizations like the Equal Justice Initiative are doing. Because at that legacy site, you see art all over the place. And ever since they've been here, I think they opened up their legacy sites in 2017, even though they existed far beyond that or before that or prior to that. But what EJI has done for this city economically, I don't think anybody would have guessed that we would have had that many more tourists and that much money pouring into our community. So they are an example of creative placemaking on the scale that they're doing. But you do need organizations like mine and others. Michelle Browder, she's going to be speaking at the conference. There are a few of us in pockets of the community, you know, who are doing the work. That's just trying to make our communities better. And we're utilizing art as a conduit to do it. So it's 10:42, and I want to leave room open for questions. Want to thank you for your attention. If there are any questions, comments, and encouragement, I welcome that right now. You can visit our website. You could check out our social media. If you want to email us, our email address is down there at the bottom. So I appreciate you all.
Question? And that was an amazing presentation. I'm always blown away.
Appreciate it, Francesca. Thank you.
If anybody has any questions, put them in the chat. And if you want to be taken off or put on camera rather and have your mic on, we can do that as well.
Hey, Francesca, should we stop sharing this so I can see everyone?
Oh, yeah. So if you'll just go to that share section and then stop sharing. Looks like Natalie has a question, so I will unmute her. Okay. Just a second. Okay, Natalie, you should be able to turn on your camera and mic.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, I tried to put it in the chat, but it wouldn't let me type my it wouldn't let me type my question. Hi, Kevin, nice to meet you, and thank you for such an inspiring presentation. My question is about measuring the economic impact of your efforts and all the projects y'all do.
Yes.
I know y'all collaborate a lot, and I've asked this question because it's a challenge I face. Do y'all kind of keep track of that yourself, or do you work with the businesses to kind of measure what their economic return is on all of these efforts that are done by King's Canvas? Or what is do y'all have a system, I guess, for kind of measuring and getting some data together?
So we're in the process of doing that now because even though we've existed, well, we started in 2017, but 2019 is when when I left my job, and I didn't mention that, and I went full time with the King's Canvas, but 9 months into it, the pandemic happened. And so we are just now at a point where we're able to do that. We have more businesses coming to the community. And sometimes with our neighborhood, it's kind of hard to get that data from the business owners. You get ambiguous data and not really even data. Hey, it's like the guy across the street says, hey, since you've been here, my business has increased. But to pin him down to say, how many more customers do you have now versus then? I haven't quite been able to do that with them. I know we'll be able to substantiate it once we finish our build out because we'll start being able to track who comes in the door, how much money they're spending. And I know when we have vendors coming in, we're able to track sales and how much art someone sold, whatever else they're selling when we have our events. And now we have other businesses, and I didn't mention this, but we have other business owners on our street that's bought businesses and open up businesses in our community. So we're just on the front end of that. And even talking to a friend of mine at the chamber, one of the things he mentioned is that they have local data that they can give us that they've been tracking. Because, they have all of the tools to do it. I'm just a community dude that's trying to do some good work, but I understand the importance of that data. And so I've kind of taken some steps to move in that direction to figure out what does that data actually look like concerning the economic impact. So.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. That's helpful. It's kind of one of the most challenging parts of it. You just want to do the work, and then you're like got to turn around and show what it's doing.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Looks like Dana's next. Dana, you should be able to turn on your camera and mic.
Good morning. Thank you, Francesca, for the invitation. And Mr. Kevin, thank you so much. This has really, just hearing everything, the inside of my stomach is leaping right now to hear the great things that you're doing. It's pretty much motivating me and encouraging me because oh God, I'm in a place where I feel like I'm stuck, and everything that you're doing is like I'm in that beginning stage with a building, leasing a building. I have a transportation company, but want to do more in the community. Started a bike ride in our area. All that you said, and the whole thing is for me is finding resources to do all that I need to do because I have all these ideas in my head, but resources and where to start from, and this was really encouraging to me, and I had to share that with you.
Oh, I appreciate that. Now we need to connect because I'm sorry, y'all. I had to turn that fan off because I couldn't hear. We should connect. Let's talk more about what you're doing, and I'd love to be able to help you with that.
So right now, we are leasing a building, which was a law office, and the building is about 7,000 square footage. They have maybe 5 offices that we can renovate it. I'm full-time transportation. I started transportation in 2010 with the school kids, but now I've gone into tourism.
Okay.
My husband is part owner. He's a contractor. So I want to renovate the building and to provide transportation in St. John, in the parish that I live in, because there is no transportation. There is a need there for just transportation and everything. So during the summertime, I created an event where we live right by the levee. My building is right by the Mississippi River, so there's a levee. It was a guy from New Orleans that came out and we did like a bike night. I have vendors out there. We did bikes on the levee with the music, and you're able to ride on the levee, and they had lights. And I have vendors out there like snowball trucks, people selling this, all kind of stuff. So I started doing that during the summertime. And that's one of the things I want to do. And like I said, everything under transportation, like renting bikes, because there's a levee there. I'm also a part of a Chamber of Commerce and an organization called Kiwanis, where we this year, Francisca could tell you, we did an art fest. So for the school kids in the parish, we did an art fest. The kids presented because our kids doesn't have a place in the area to promote their art. So that was another thing that we created. So that it's a bunch the stuff, but it's all good stuff that the community needs right now. And people started coming out. It was every Thursday night. People would come out, they'll ride bikes, they would buy stuff from the vendors. We have food trucks. Started that, and then like I said, the building I'm looking to own it, but it needs renovations right now. And just resources is I feel like what I need right now.
Well, look, I just put my email address in the chat. Why don't you email me and let's talk more about it, all right?
Okay, I sure will. I'm looking for it. Look, you gotta find the chat. Got it.
And I can send Kevin's
Send it to
contact as
me.
well.
Yes.
All right. Looks like Miss Rita has a question. So Miss Rita, you should be able to take yourself off mute and also turn on your camera if you would like.
Well, hello there. And
Hey.
I didn't have a question. I said comment. Well, my comment is like Dana said, and Dana is a good friend of ours. I mean, we work together all the time. And my comment was just like she said, but she got to it first. You have definitely been an inspiration. It is our heart to do some things culturally in the community. We found out that we're a part of the cultural district, the cultural districts in our area, but we're looking to partner with them, become a part of them, or either establish our own. Because like Dana said, there's a lot that we can do culturally in our area. We're in St. John the Baptist Parish. You know, it's not a great big parish, but it's great big. It was one of the last parishes that succumbed to white supremacy back in the day. And so there is an awesome history to tell. We have a historic church building, which we get a chance to tell what happened to the people of color when they left the plantation, what happened after the Code Noir, and it into Jim Crow. And anyway, we're preserving the legacy of our people because that's where we are.
That's
and
right.
We have contacted Francesca and Tyra, who works in our community, to try to get something off the ground culturally, and bringing, just like Dana has hers right down the street, bringing all our people together to preserve the history that is here, and history that is kind of being rewritten. So it's even more so very important now. So anyway, I just want to say kudos to you. Perfect timing. Thank you, Francesca, inviting us so we could see what we're talking.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Looks like Laura has a question. So Laura, you should be able to take yourself off mute and also allow your camera.
I am trying. I am so challenged. I'm more accustomed to Zoom. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. We're right there with you, Laura, both Kevin and I.
All right. And it was difficult getting it downloaded and operating on the Mac, so I'm on my phone. But this has been so very interesting. Kevin and Dana and all who have shared, and we just appreciate everything we're hearing on this end. My question is, we're so excited about being number 127 in our state of Louisiana to have been designated as a cultural district. It's the Railroad Avenue Historic Cultural District, and that railroad runs from the eastern part of the U.S. all the way over to California. So there's a lot of history always on the other side of the track.
Yeah.
And our population is only about maybe 5,000 strong, but there's so much excitement that has been garnered from the announcement. And I just wanted to get your input because most of the buildings are pretty much run down. We had the Chitlin Circuit to come through, had Tina Turner, Fats Domino, Otis Redding, you name it. They came through this little town of Jeanerette. Even Marvin Gaye and former President George Bush out at a local grocery store here. So we've got the landmarks, the society halls that individuals belonged to bury their families. And, it was a challenge. And yet the area survived up until, I guess, maybe 20 years ago. And our intent is to do just what I'm hearing everyone talk about. So the challenge is there. What would you say, Kevin, would be our greatest challenge coupled with our first best big step?
Okay, so without me, so you gave me a little context. I would always start with the people.
Yes.
Making sure that you have buy-in from the people, making sure that you don't do anything in the community apart from those who live there. Because if you know how it is when you move in and you start making decisions and the people aren't involved, first of all,
Right.
you're not doing justice with the land, but also, people feel disrespected. People want to give genuine input. And you may have some thoughts and ideas initially. I'm not saying start from scratch and just say, hey, tell us what you want. Sometimes, as a visionary, you have to have a vision in mind, but you have to somewhat present a portion of that vision and allow others to speak into it. I would always say start with the people. And sometimes it's harder to do that if you don't already have a rapport with the people and buy in. And oftentimes, that's what people do. They say, "Hey, I don't want to deal with people, so I'm gonna just come in and do it," and it ends up being a lot more trouble. Outside of that, you mentioned a lot of the facilities, the buildings. From a creative placemaking standpoint, I would look for places that are viable for activation, right? And however that looks in our context, it looks the way that I showed you, but it may look differently in your context. But whatever activation look like, whatever the local art community looks like, whether it's visual arts, performing arts, culinary arts, whatever, um, I would look for spaces that you could move into and activate and actually get the people involved. And
Great.
that's my short answer, for the sake of time. But
I really appreciate it. Now,
yeah,
for your email address and other information, it pops up real quickly and then it disappears off of my phone here. I couldn't quite get it, but give me
okay.
the site again.
I can send an email after this with a link to the video as well as Kevin's contact information.
Oh, great, great, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, it looks like Sharina is raising her hand, so you should be able to allow your mic and your camera.
Thank you. On mute, Sharina.
One second, you guys. None of this stuff is working.
We hear you now.
You can hear me now?
Right.
Hello.
Yes.
Thank you, guys. It was a wonderful presentation. So my question is, are you available as a consultant to come and help some of these organizations with this work?
Yeah, I sure am. I've done some consultant work recently in Kentucky, and I'm starting to get phone calls from municipalities from different areas. I had to speak to the Georgia Municipal Association. Ooh, actually, it was a year ago. It was a year ago this weekend because it was on my birthday. And so people are starting to call me to come to their, cities and consult. I haven't actually had an opportunity to go to any one cities yet, but a lot of them have been just either phone or virtual consultations. I have a book coming out that we're going to release at the Creative Placemaking Conference, and I'm going to have some resources available for people not only to take the information that they've received from webinars like this and contextualize it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm gonna offer opportunities to hopefully be able to help people, just practically implement a lot of these strategies in their context. So thank you for that question.
Thank you. And is it the same email address if we are interested in you coming out to our organizations?
Yeah, for now it is. Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sharina, where are you located in the state?
I'm in Boston.
Oh, well, welcome.
Thank
That's
you.
great. Thank you for joining us all the way
Yes,
from
thank you so
Boston.
much.
All right, looks like Miss Evelyn has a question. And as long as we have questions, we can keep going. If anybody needs to hop off, you can, but we can stay a bit longer for questions. Evelyn, you should be able to unmute and turn on your camera.
Thank you on mute, Evelyn.
You can also drop your question in the chat if that's easier. Oh, she did. What a transformational story. We're doing creative placemaking here in Baton Rouge within the Renoir Cultural District. I'd like to know more about the education piece using the digital kiosk.
All right, so as far as the education is concerned, we on the very beginning stages of that digital kiosk, and a friend of mine is on a called Brother Boyd Stevens. I think well, anyway. So we, as of now, we use it to basically highlight businesses in our community because as tourists come, as people from the community come, and they don't know what's around, they're able to hop on there and see exactly who's not only in our neighborhood, but businesses that are on the outskirts of the neighborhood. And if they don't know how to get there, a QR code pops up so they could scan it and it pulls their map up. And so it's kind of in this beta phase, but as of now, that's kind of how we've been using it. And it's beautiful to be out there, but there are some things that we want to do with it to make sure that people understand what local resources we have. Not only just within inside of our community, but on the outskirts of our community. Even down to public transformation is a huge thing, is a huge topic here that people have been talking about, obviously, especially in the city where the Montgomery bus boycott happened. So, people be able to eventually get on there to see bus routes in real time, because it's hot out there sometimes. And sometimes they may want to come inside to get cool and you don't want to miss your bus. But if you know exactly when the bus is going to be there, you can be able to plan your days better for those who ride the bus.
Evelyn, I think you took yourself off mute. Do you have any other questions? Okay. Well, it doesn't look like there's any other hands raised. But I did have one question for you, Kevin.
Okay.
We work as the state with a lot of local governments, and I was just wondering if you have any advice for local governments that are doing community visioning meetings, how they could go about that, what's the best practice, what that might look like coming from a local government as opposed to a member of the community.
So I would say really honor the people, the honor the assets in your local community. Sometimes there's a need to bring in outsiders. But when you do, make sure that you're working with the people in the community. And sometimes, outsiders coming in can be a distraction. In cases like this, especially when you're dealing with this topic, sometimes there's a need to bring in outsiders because the community may not necessarily understand the language or terminology due to a lack of exposure. But guess what? I'm pretty sure that there's someone who can basically partner with those who are coming from the outside who do understand the language and the studies and all of that academia stuff that we talk about. And we need to pay these people. We need to pay these people for their time. We need to pay these people for their information. We don't need to ask people to come in just to kind of spend all of this time with us and give them, giving us all of this advice and these things that we will probably eventually implement, and we don't compensate them. So it needs to be a partnership between our local government and the community, and really doing some deep asset mapping to find out, who all is there in those spaces that can be a benefit to the growth and development and the progression of our communities as they partner with people from the outside. When I spoke a year ago to the Georgia Municipal Association, one guy at the end, and I think he was from maybe Thomasville. He was with the Economic Development Department there. And he said, I have a question. How do we find another Kevin King? And everyone just started laughing. I was like, well, the goal isn't necessarily to find someone like me. The goal is to basically partner with the people who are already there and try to figure out a way to compensate these people for their time and their knowledge and the information that they give as you take the academia approach that you have and marry it with the straight up common sense, knowledge, and know-how that the people in the community already have. Like, genuinely work with the community. Don't go in and take advantage of them. And I get the sense from you that y'all don't do that. And I'm so appreciative, because some cities, they'll use you, they'll take advantage of you, and the community has nothing to show for it after contractors leave. And so I'm kind of passionate about that. So just make sure that you are working with the people and doing justice with the people that's in your community.
No, I think that absolutely makes sense.
Right.
Jeremiah did have his hand raised. I'm not sure, he dropped out and dropped back in. So I'm going to allow your mic and allow your camera. You should be able to unmute and turn your camera on.
Oh, can you see me?
We see you, Jeremiah.
Okay. First of all, I just want to say thank you for this. This has been some great information. And as someone who has actually gone through the program with the King's Canvas, both my wife and I have become local artists here in Montgomery, Alabama. We've also been able to do some things across the state on the West Coast. And I'm just so encouraged by everything that Kevin King and he's been able to do with the King's Canvas, and I'm just glad to be a part of it. And whoever's out there listening, I just want you to know that this is a tried, true, and tested thing. And here I am. I'm living it and walking it to this day. So thank you, Kevin.
Appreciate you, man.
Yes, sir.
Love you, bro.
Love you too, man.
That's amazing. What a great note to end on. Kevin, thank you again so much. I'm such a fan of your work. I think you have done amazing things for your community, and look forward to continue working with you and maybe seeing you at the summit and checking out Montgomery.
Oh yeah, we're gonna have a good time at that summit. Y'all in store for it. Evelyn did post something in the chat. Evelyn, why don't you email me? As a matter of fact, I'm even post my phone number. You can call. Shoot me a text before you call, because sometimes I don't answer all of these calls that I don't know. And I don't know if you can see it in the chat, but my number is area code 334-657-7049. And anyone, you could call or text me at any time. I've had that number for 18 years, so everyone has it. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. This will also go up on the OCD YouTube page. We can talk about whether or not we want to leave your phone number on that, but everyone will get a copy of this. If you joined in late, you can still catch the beginning of Kevin's presentation, and hope everybody has a great rest of your day. Thank you again, Kevin.
Thank you.